Thank y'all for tuning back in to your favorite channel, Pelican Bay K9s, giving it to you the way I always do. Fair and unbiased. Some gonna like it, some ain't, man. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that like button before you get up out of here. Big salute to all the brothers and sisters down in the chat. Big salute to all the brothers and sisters down in the chat. Now, if you haven't subscribed to that channel, go ahead and subscribe. Now, you're gonna miss these exclusive interviews. Hope everybody having a great New Year's to start the year off. Got an exclusive interview for you. Like I say, salute to all the dog lovers from one side of the country to the other side of the country, from one side of the world to the other side of the world. Let's get into it. I'm in the building with Mr. Johnny today, and we're going to talk some of that old school dog talk. How you doing, my brother?
Doing fine.
Yes, sir. All right. How your holidays been going for you, man?
They've been going good. Everything had a good Christmas, New Year's. I'm tell you a little bit about me. My father he had hunting dogs and he had to pit dogs too. That was back in the 50s when I was just a young boy. I remember seeing Mr. Wesley Truitt when he was a young man. But I was like about 10 years old or something like that. And but my daddy had some of the old J.M. Price dogs. You may see a dog way back there. Howard Teal's Jake. He was a Trice dog.
Yes, sir.
A Trice-bred bloodline. And I later, I took care of the dogs and all that. And they used to have shows back on my grandparents' property, and that today belongs to the Southern 500 race car track. They bought all that property from my family after my grandparents passed away, and so later on I got into as far as Mr. Teal was concerned, my father was good friends with him, and one of Mr. Howard Teal's uncle. He married one of my aunts, and he run a barber shop in my hometown, and so we knew him real well. And my first dog that I pit bull ever owned came from Mr. Teal, and I knew him, and also my father knew him good. And so what really got me on into the dogs was that last second show. Bass's Redboy was in, where he went against that female dog, and that's where I met the Jackson fella, and we became dog partners. And so we got our dogs started through two little Orby Copeland bred dogs. They were basically Hensel dogs that were obtained through Don Mayfield. Okay. And so we were kind of Mayfield fans for a good while. But I was more or less the silent partner, and because of my job and all of that, I stayed kind of out of the limelight. I went a lot of places, seen a lot of things, knew a lot of people in that 70s era,
yeah.
70s and 80s, that time era. I knew and definitely all of that were in South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and so
sir.
That's kind of where I started, and we made two breedings, and Don would not let us make any line breedings. We bred one breeding off that Mayfield Sunshine dog, and another breeding off of that Mayfield Snake dog, and those turned out to be some really exceptional dogs. Frank Jacobs kept up. We had little dogs. We didn't have big catch weight dogs. We had little small dogs run 32 pounds, 35 pounds, about the biggest we had. We might have went around 37-something pounds. And so, but dominantly, we had the small dogs. And Frank Jacobs kept up with us for a while there. He told my partner, he said, I was standing there with him, he said, you won 29 shows. You won 29 shows with those dogs. And of course, as time went by, it's like anything else. It's like a winning football team. Over time, you start losing your older dogs and whatnot. And so, you ain't gonna consistently keep on winning like that. You really have to regroup and start again, and so on and so on. but that's where I got started. Right up there with old Redboy. I knew that Redboy dog really good. I saw all of his siblings. I know where he came from. I know about four versions of the. See that what they always miss out on is just the sire.
Yeah.
The sire to Redboy. There's about four different versions on that, and the one that makes the most sense to me is the one. And I'll try to contact him and see if he'll have a talk with you. Is he goes under the name EWO on the Pitbull Bible database site.
Yes, sir.
Which I was a moderator on there for several years, and I've just reached about 6-8 months ago. I kind of dropped off, but I corrected a lot of bad pedigrees on that site, and made diligent, checking out pedigrees with the online sped, and then there's several other pedigree sites that I could go to, and I would pick when you had you had a question on a pedigree, if you had 2 out of the 3 agreeing, I would put the one that the 2 out of 3 agreed on.
Yeah.
But I corrected a lot of bad pedigrees on that site, and of course later on, as time went by, my dog partner, he kept the older stock of dogs, and then I started working toward some Carver dogs. I started working with that, and I started getting really good results with that. And then finally, when I got out of the dogs, my partner, he went down south, and he took everything off my yard and his yard, and he went down there. And I hadn't even looked into any of these dogs for a lot of years. And as I messed more and more on these computers, on his PCs and all, I just entered the name Young's Jake. That was one of my dogs, Young's Jake.
Mm-hmm.
His pedigree come up, and I saw the siblings. I saw this and that. Re-interested in it all, because it's like an addiction to you. Once you ever get it in your blood, it's hard to ever get it out.
Yeah.
It's just something that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get to this other stuff in a minute, but we're trying to get a little history here. I contacted my buddy. He was doing well, and them dogs had stayed intact for right at 40 years, just like we had them bred. And a lot of people used them for the good or the bad, and there's some still being used today. But a lot of you dog men, to get some successful dogs, they're not going to tell you where they come from.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the case with that case. And but he's down about 4 dogs now. I don't know what's producing and what's not. And them dogs are getting about 6 to 8 years old, maybe. And so the way he was talking with his health and all,
yeah,
I don't know if he'd be much longer anyhow.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question real quick before I forget it, because you was
okay. Go ahead.
I heard you say something about the Redboy. You seen the Redboy and the female show?
I did. My partner saw the first one with the William Cable's Fang dog.
Okay.
The outcome would have been the same, because like I say, you can't make excuses if you go on through with it.
Yeah.
But that Fang dog was really sick. He was throwing up and all that, and so that Redboy won that one. Let me first say something about Redboy. He was a good game dog. I saw him game tested. I'm talking about severely game tested on a big old pit bull Great Dane cross. And that dog, I wrote several things about it. Sometimes I make the weight get bigger and the weight get lower. You know how that is. But he had to be well over 100-pound dog. He was a monster. And it was in the middle of July, hot. Down here we have that, kind of summers we have down here. It was in July, and I saw this personally. I was there personally, and Mr. McDougal, who had a full brother to Redboy, that dog was called Happy. Mr. McDougal and me, and there was some others. I don't remember everybody's name exactly, but he put us away. That dog was skull dragging him around, and finally when he finally broke loose and he faced him up, he made a wobbly scratch right back into that dog. And so then later they matched him 2 times. Now he had heartworms, and I don't know how bad the extent the heartworms was on the first go round with the Fang dog, but on the second show, they gave him a heartworm treatment. Mr. Till had a veterinarian that he sent to veterinarian school, and when he come back home, he built him the building and everything, put him in business. But Mr. Till was a businessman. He owned a lot of land and everything in Wadesboro, North Carolina, and he had that Bowman, what was called a Bowman restaurant, and he put that young man in sent him off to veterinary school, and he was Mr. Till's personal vet, and so. But back then, the heartworm treatment was arsenic, and you had to be real careful. If you kill all the heartworms at one time, the dog would die. And so he went through an arsenic treatment, which is really hard on the dog's system. And so when they got through with all that and give him a little rest and time and all, they come out on that Leposse, that female, I don't know if Leposse owner or who owned her. Leposse was the one that made the challenge. I was standing there when they made the challenge. And, of course, Mr. Till, he was telling Bass, and I want to say first, I'm not a great fan of Bass. Yeah. He was telling Bass that, hold on a minute, because they were going to bring a female,
Yeah.
And Bass made the statement that he said, I don't care if they bring her dead in heat. If she bites him, he'll kill her.
Damn.
That's how confident he was. And so everything went through, and that's when I saw that show, that one, and that's when I met my dog partner. We met that same day. He come the first time to see the first one, and then the second one when he came, that's when I met him, and I saw the second show. Now, Redboy was a smart head dog, and when that bitch hit him, she was a storm bomber. She just ran. I mean, she just nailed him, and she hit him hard in the shoulder. Well, he reached over and just reached right over and caught her right across the bridge of her nose, took her right out.
Dang.
And then she got into his back end. He was a very heavy muscle dog. He was limber, and he was a very intelligent dog. He just reached back there, caught her across the bridge of her nose, took her out of there. And when he get those good nose holes, he would stay in holes, and a lot of people said he didn't have no bite. He had a soft mouth. He was a lot of people don't understand the difference between a snatch and tearing dog and a dog that is a hard pressure biter. Mm-hmm. And that's what he was. He was a hard pressure biting dog. He had that hole, and you see him clamp down. You see him clamp down and clamp down. And he got a real good nose hole on that dog. I don't know how many minutes they were into the show, but she finally couldn't take it no longer, and she broke loose and tried to run. He grabbed her in the shoulder, but she tried to run, and they had a handle, and then she wouldn't scratch. But that's how that show went down.
Yeah.
And but I know let me tell you, I reckon you want to hear the rest of the story.
Oh yeah.
I figure you want to talk about Redboy today.
I got some more questions. We can talk about Hank in a little while, but go ahead and tell me that Redboy stuff. Because there's a lot of excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to Redboy, and so like you said, so many different stories, and everybody claim they know the stories,
Yeah. First of all, the tramp dog that they say was the side of Redboy. Now that's the one that Carolina. I don't know if the PD Kennels fellas, they kind of want to run with that, and then there's some others as well. But the Tramp dog, whether he was a sire Redboy or not, I don't know. He was a dog they picked up off the street. I think he was a brindle dog. Well, that dog was matched into Baker Davis's Boomerang. It might have been the first time Baker Davis matched Boomerang. He campaigned that dog through 8 years of his life. He was a grand champion. In fact, the last dog he went into was another dog of Mr. Teal's, was bred similar to the Redboy stuff, out of some of that. Was his last show. And he was right at 8 years old at that time. And he won over that dog, Mr. Teal's. But that Tramp dog, I never saw him. And I say, if you can go back and find the old, maybe to find the whole listing on Baker Davis's Boomerang dog and the list of the opponents.
Yeah,
you'll see one of them, probably one of the early ones will be Mr. Teal, and I'm pretty sure that was the Tramp dog that he used in that show. And but the other version is one that's like 35 years apart. Mr. Egan Skinner, which was a dog partner with Mr. Teal, very good dog man his own self. He had some really good dogs. A lot of that Lightner stuff and all. Him and Dean Clemens had those. They had some of the red-nosed Lightner dogs from Hempfield, and they had some of the later Lightner bloodline that he started breeding later on. They had some of that, and they were trying to revise that bloodline. And some of the best of them got drowned down on Mr. Egan Skinner's yard. He had a creek run around behind his house when he lived in North Carolina, and so they got drowned. And then he later moved to Charleston and took what dogs he had left there. And Mr. Dean Clemens, I never got to meet. I wish when I was visiting with Joe Bill, I wish that I'd have went and tried to visit with him and some of them other dog men and also with Sonny Shropshire. He knew some of them older dog men like Stidham and those guys. And I wish I'd have took the time to have gone and, visited with them and talked with them. But the version that Mr. Egan told me was that the Redboy dog he thought was off of Teal's tip.
Mm.
And that was a dog. Them dogs were bred by Mr. Egan Skinner. Mr. Teal's tip, Teal's Susie Q. LaPasse had one called LaPasse's Beanie, but I don't know if she was exactly the same, bred the same way, but I believe she was. And then there was maybe a couple more of them, but that's what he told me. That was like 35, 40 years ago when I just got into the dog game, and I started coming up to Mr. Teal's restaurant and visiting with him and whatnot. And then 35 years or so later, Tom Gardner called me and he invited me to come to one of his pig pickings. And I asked him something about that Redboy dog or whatever. And he told me that when he called Mr. Teal right before he died, Mr. Teal had a heart attack. In fact, I was with him when they went down to Georgia. I drove him down there, and then I drove him back. He wouldn't go to an emergency room like he should have, but he made me drive him all the way back to Waysboro with had a heart attack, and we was afraid he was going to die in the car. And anyhow, he called Mr. Teal he said right before he died, and he asked him that same question: what was the start of the Redboy dog? And Mr. Teal told him it was the Teal's tip dog. So that's the two versions of that from like 35 years apart, me not even knowing Tom Gardner that well. And then the other one, which I think is more correct, is there was a black man in North Carolina. His name was Krebs. I never could get that the correct the correct spelling and all.
Yeah.
But he got, and the reason why I say this is a few months before, not long before Mr. Mims died, EWO taught him. EWO was very good friends with Mr. Mims, Carl Mims.
Yes, sir.
And he used a lot of Mr. Mims' dogs. And Carl told him, he said that the Redboy dog and the William Cable's Fang dog were closely related. That's what he told me.
Mm.
So that takes you to the Cribs story. And there was a man named Stidham. He was a game cocker, and he kept some pit dogs on his yard. And where he got them from, because Mr. Bob Hempfield he messed with a lot of game chickens too. He liked game chickens, and then he had that strand of red-nosed dogs that him and some of them other fellas, kept them bred intact. And he got those dogs that he got were straight Bob Hempfield red-nosed dogs. Being that he was a game cocker, he was very strict on gameness. And he would take them dogs, the ones that he would keep and breed from, he would take them and test them hard and put them up. Now, if it didn't scratch during the testing, that was the end of them. But if it went through that testing, he would put them up, get them back out the next morning when it was all stove up, and see if they'd go again. And that's the ones he kept for breed. And the Krebs fella used the same method. And so a lot of those North Carolina men around there, dog men, a lot of times they used his dogs, but they never gave him no credit.
Mm.
And so the Stidham dogs, when you look at some of the Stidham pedigrees, you might find, I believe some of it's in that Fang dog, I'm pretty sure. But you'll see it goes back to Bob Hempfield's dogs. And then they maybe some of Mr. Cable's bloodline in there, and maybe some of there was another man named called Long, Long. Long. I used to know his first name. Maybe some of his dogs as well. But regardless, the dog was predominantly Hempfield blood. That's probably, to me, the way he looked. He didn't look like no Kobe dog. My dogs were Hensel dogs with heavy Kobe breed in them. The first dogs I had, they looked like Kobe dogs. They were white brindles, red brindles, whatever. They come patch colors. They looked like Kobe dogs. Redboy does not look like a Kobe dog. He never looked like a Kobe dog. He looked more like a standard, like the old Pete Sparks's. He used to have a dog image he put on his magazines. That was considered a perfect confirmation look of a pit bull terrier. So see, they bull terriers. They're not bulldogs. They bull terriers. And that's the dog. He looked similar. He looked like that type of dog. He was a long dog and a heavy muscle dog. But I think that's what he was. Even though we won't never know the real truth on the sire because everybody's dead.
Yeah.
And everybody has their version of what they were told. Just like I just gave you two versions here. And Mr. Krebs, he's no longer living. That would have been the man to have talked to. So
yeah.
So that's probably where Rebel we'll never really ever know.
No, you're right about that. You're right about that.
You take that Bodog, and I'm not talking. I argued about it on that site because some dog men had stated they put a pedigree on that Bodog on that Bob Finley's Bodog.
Yes, sir.
They were saying that the LaPosse had told him that he was out of the Bullet 2 or Bullet 3 dog or something like that. I ain't talking about the bottom side. I'm talking about the top side. And if you go on and look at the pictures of the Bodog sire, he was a solid black dog, and Kobe dogs don't come black. And you see a lot of those black with white in the chest dogs through them bullet dogs. Mm. But, I argued with them that the pedigree is what it is. It's been like that for a long time. Unless Mr. Finley wants to change it, that's him,
Yeah.
So that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you can't go in there and change the stuff because unless you talk to the owner and see what he wants to do about it and see. LaPasse, he was in the dog puppy selling business. He was not a dog man per se, as a lot of the fellas you talk to.
Yeah.
And if you went out, you went there, and his uncle would do the same thing. I knew his uncle. His name was Atlas Lamb, I believe. Me and Andy out, another good little dog man, lived right around me here. He stayed out of the limelight, and he did real good. But we went there and visited Mr. Lamb, and he walked out there with a stack of papers, pedigree papers.
Yeah.
And whatever we'd asked for, we'd be looking at that dog or whatever we'd asked for. He'd walk you out a dog. He'd shuffle them. Here's your paper.
Dang.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and Mr. LaPasse, I ain't saying he didn't breed some good dogs now. I mean, when you got that Buster dog and all, but I had some of that, and I was building a yard on that and that Jeremiah stuff, and I was getting some exceptional dogs, he put his daughters through college and all with the help of selling them dogs. And so if you walk around there, he had like 3 puppy pens of dogs, and you went in there and started asking for a specific this or that. He had it. That's what them are right over there.
Dang. Now
let me. I ain't saying all of them's like that. You don't know.
Yeah, you never know.
But I just know. I do know there's a guy here in Hartsville, South Carolina. He had. This was back in the 70s. Now you had Mr. Gainey and Mr. Truitt and all them fellas.
Mr. Truitt, they still loving they still loving Mr. Truitt stuff on my side of town.
Yeah. That Kobe. This guy had a whole bunch of them Kobe dogs. He bought them from LaPasse. He had a whole kennel of them, and I went and talked with him one time and asked him about them and whatnot, and found out where they were from and all. And but none of us ever bought a dog from him. Them dogs. When you can take them and put them all together in one kennel, one pen kennel, and put this one and that one together and whatnot, hey, something wrong with that picture.
Hey, something wrong
and
with
that's what's going on with these people. That's what these people today, I don't know what kind of dogs, were they really full-blooded pit bulls or what they are. A little boy just got mauled today on the darn news by 8 pit bulls. Now, were they little puppies? Were they puppies that jumped on him, trying to play with him and biting on him? Or was it dogs, And what were they? I mean, I see a lot of dogs called pit bulls that are Amstaffs or Amstaff mixed up dogs.
Mm-hmm.
A fellow got one right down the road here. And the sucker, he could be dangerous if he's with a small dog. If he's with a couple of little small dogs that'll run at you and yap at you and bite at you, that's going to rile him up, and you don't know where it's going to go from there.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Till was right. He told me, he said, these dogs are not for the public. Don't sell them to the public.
Yep, because the
and he said, if they ain't no good.
Oh, go ahead.
Put them to sleep. Don't sell them. The only one I ever saw go to the public was a guy that hog hunted. And back then they didn't use them aprons on the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the life expectancy of a catch dog ain't very long catching wild boar.
Yeah.
They usually don't last maybe a year or two at the most. And so, but I'm starting to ramble now. You got to get me back on the subject.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
I want to ask you some things about I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to ask you about. Right. I want to ask you about Hank. When it comes to Jocko, do you think Hank produced a better litter than the litter that Jocko's produced from?
Oh yeah, that Hank dog was a well-bred dog. He went back into the better. I always thought was a better dog. Everybody still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
sorry about that.
It was like Stockton's Liz, I think that Womack Mert dog was in there. Some of them dogs. I always thought them were the better dogs that he had, and of course he used a lot of other people's dogs. You got to remember, Don Mayfield wasn't no young guy. Mayfield come up in the 50s with people like Mr. Teal. They knew each other real well, and Maurice Carver and all them guys. They were like the 50s, more or less 60s. Even though they did do some of them did some stuff on into the 70s and maybe 80s, but they were not. They were more like the 50s, mid 50s or so type dog men.
Yeah.
And there at the end there, he wasn't that. He was Don Mayfield was a tall man. He could have played. He could have been on a pro basketball court. He'd be tall as a lot of them basketball players. He was real tall.
Wow.
I saw him make it. He made a joke out of Irish Jerry at a show when at Easy. Mayfield's dog was called Easy, and she was a Red Bill bloodline, Tudor's Red Bill, which that was a real good bloodline. That Mayfield State come out of that. Some of these bloodlines are catalysts for these dogs today.
Yeah.
That Red Bill blood was a good catalyst for the Divo dogs. That Creole blood that I had managed to get hold to, that was a good catalyst blood for a lot of your Carver blood. There was one man that talked with me. He had some of it and wish he'd never lost it. But yeah, the hang dog, he would not take hold till he was close to 3 years old. I think what fired him up was Vernon brought him down here to my yard. I put him on my yard, and back then I could have bought him for $100 if I'd have wanted him, because he just wouldn't do nothing. But he put him on my yard, and he ran a bunch of strange dogs and all, and he started firing up. And so then we went over to maybe a few months later. We went over to another fella. He was not kin to Wesley, but his name was Woody Truitt.
Yes.
And he had some dogs and bought a couple of Carver dogs. And he had a Amstaff dog that he called Obi, and he'd won one or two with that dog. And so we were just, showing some dogs that day. And so he brought that Obi dog there. In fact, we did it down there by the woods and just let him go. And that Hank dog, he started getting it on. And boy, he got in that dog's shoulder and all. You start seeing some bad things happening. And I said, dang. And when Vernon saw all that, and so we still had him, and me and the Alboy, we had him, and we worked him to go into Rick's Bird. He had a champion dog, or a dog going for champion. He called Arizona Pete, real gorgeous, nice looking dog. And he was a well-bred dog. And Andy did most of the work on the dog. And when it come time to go to the show, I couldn't go. They called me in and made me go to work, because I worked for a telephone company, and they called me in, and I didn't have no choice. I hated that, but I did get there, made it up there afterwards. But anyhow, they ended up, the Hank dog and the Arizona Pete dog, what happened, Andy let the dog get into some wet straw in a barrel. And he got a little touch of mange. He didn't have the mange, but he got a little bit of skin irritation on him. And Rick saw it. He made Vernon tell him, agree to him if his dog caught the red mange but he was so confident he was going to win, he'd have to pay the vet bill or something. And Vernon said, sure, yeah. But they put that show off to the last, because everybody else thought they were more important. And that was the show that brought the house down. And he didn't get the best of the show, because they didn't give it to somebody else. They just thought it was going to be a little blowover deal. And he wiped that Arizona Red dog out.
Wow.
And then later he matched him into Irish Jerry, and he had a little dog called Redeye, a gorgeous dog, and a very good dog too. I think I thought he might have been out of some of the Holtz's dogs in Texas, because they were up there. Him and his wife were up there, and so I took everything that Vernon didn't. He did. I was a good. I had to keep Vernon, try to keep it straight, because I tell him, I went and got. I made sure I had a big old flashlight. I took it and I took a thing to check the scales and all that. And so I was the one that did the washing.
Okay.
And Jerry, he wanted to hang when he come to my dog. He wanted to hang dog. He wanted to hang the hang dog up there, walk around him and walk around him and walk around him and look at him. And I told him, I said, "What's the matter? The dog's on wait. You can see it right there. That's enough of that." And so we got him down. And then when we were getting ready to wash him, Jerry had a pan of hot, scalding water.
Mm.
And I saw the steam come off of it, and I touched it. I said, you sorry rascal, you want to try to scald my dog. And I made him bring cold water and get it back down to where it'd be good. And then after they washed him, of course, I need to back up on the other dog. When he washed his dog, his dog had to wash second. So after we got him washed, Vernon, took him. And then when we washed his dog, he wanted to grab his dog up and take him on to the show with him soaking wet and soap on him. I had to reel him back in again and made him rinse the dog and dry him off good. And so I got through all that. So then we got out there. When he let him go, the red-eye dog, he got the first hold, hit the shoulder. The hang dog reached over and caught the other shoulder on him, broke his shoulder, and then broke that shoulder. And then he finally went there to the back end on the back leg and that joint there. And the referee was watching all this. He didn't have no business being a referee. He was watching it. And when he bit that back leg, the back leg just broke. You hear the crack sound. And he started throwing up.
Dang. Dang.
Yeah, he got.
So the referee.
And then after that, it was a massacre. After that,
the referee start throwing up.
Say what?
The referee start throwing up.
Yeah, the referee started throwing up. And then after all that, they kicked the lights out. The generator all of a sudden just went off. And then I cut my light on and kept the light on the dogs. And make sure Jerry and them tried to keep the dog or do something to him. And so when they realized they could, had a good bright light, a big beam light, and they couldn't realize they couldn't do nothing there. And then all of a sudden, the generator lights come back on. And so then the final thing that he did, and I don't know what that referee was waiting on, it come time for the red-eyed dog to scratch. The dog tried to make a scratch. He was a good dog. I'd have loved to have had him. He staggered over to the pit wall up against the wall in his corner. He fell up against the wall, leaning on it, trying to stand. And Jerry goes over there and starts calling him. Jerry had him about a 35-second scratch. Call him down to the wall and then try to call him back up there. Vernon asked Vincent, "When is this thing over?" I said, "That dog dead on his feet." And so then that was the end of it. And then what made matters even worse, he took that dog and went back behind that big shed and threw him down on the ground. And it's a cold winter time in Georgia. Threw him down on the ground, and he was back there flopping around like a fish out of water. And Mrs. Sharon Hope walked by and saw it. Oh my Lord! And she went and got Crenshaw. He come around there and saw it. He called Mr. Jerry over there, and I ain't gonna tell you what all he had to say to him. Yeah. He told him to take the dog out there somewhere and put it out of his misery. And if he ever saw him do something like that again, he would never be back on his premises.
Yeah.
And bad sportsmanship. I mean, I like old Jerry. I knew him all the way back before he even had some dogs. He was he'd go down. He was go down there to Florida or at the dog. Nelson boy was a stocky, strong guy, and Jerry was going to finger wrestle with him, and he started finger wrestling with him, and Nelson broke his finger.
Dang.
Yeah, you know how it is around some of them things. Some of them back then things were a lot calmer than they are now.
Yeah.
And they when something was going on, they were very, very quiet. There was no screaming, hollering, and carrying on. Well, I tell you about that bad event down there, and with that termite dog down there in Elizabethtown. Man, I spent a cold night in them swamps. That was a bad trip there.
Mm.
And what happened was they were all screaming and hollering, and the people up in the front, they were like 2 miles up there on the main road. When I drove in there, I had my window rolled down. I could hear them all the way down there in the woods, like a football game going on. I said, "Dang!" And in fact, we parked our car about a half a mile back in the woods from them, and walked down there. And then when they broke loose on the Nate show with termite, I told my wife we got to. Anyhow, I didn't make it. She did. Things didn't turn out too bad after all of that. But I told that sheriff I would never ever go back to. You never see me in Elizabethtown again as long as I live. Yeah. And I ain't never been back, and ain't not going back. But anyhow, that Hank dog was actually an ace dog. He was in a class of dog like Volley B or some of them real super dogs. And he did not look like them dogs that them dogs that tan. He was about I think he measured around 38 pounds.
Mm.
He was a long, wiry, skinny built dog, and he had real black eyes, and he was a buckskin with a little white streak through his nose. I think he might have had white stockings on his feet and all. But he was only bred, as far as I knew, he was only bred 2 times. He was bred to that Bob Raff's Queenie bitch, and he was bred to my young Stephen bitch.
Why they only bred him twice? Or why y'all only bred him twice?
He died.
Okay.
He'd brought him out again. In fact, he got tangled on the chain or some way or another on the chain, and he died from heat stroke. It was during the summertime. Vernon, when he come home, he found him tangled up or whatever, and he was dead. Yeah, if he'd have lived, I ain't tell you how many good dogs he could have produced. But he was an exceptional dog. And that Jeep dog, I don't know if it was the next to last or the last show that Jeep had with that Homer dog, ended up going into that Homer dog. Ozzie Stevenson told me personally up there at Mr. Sharpshire about all that. And of course, he was not a young man then, and he started crying. That thing bothered him even to this day. What he did to his Homer dog. But I saw Jeep go 2 times. I'm pretty sure it was 2 times. I was not impressed.
Yeah.
And I know on one of them, if they hadn't bunched up together, he went over that pit. He was trying to get over.
Dang.
And what it was, that dog that, what's that fellow's name? He was down there in Florida. I can't think of his name right now. He brought a dog in there. I don't know why he even owned a dog like that, because he had some good Carver dogs. That dog was supposed to have been a Carver dog. That dog looked like a half-breed basset hound. He had the legs like a basset hound, and the back end, and the big old hound dog ears. And I mean, there's no way he could have conditioned that dog. You can't condition no fiddle front dog, a dog that's fiddle front with his feet going out to the sides.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't run no dog like that. He'll go cripple on you. So he might have had him in some basic shape, and when he barnstormed that dog, he liked the back end of the dog, the testicles and all. And so had Jeep scooting around, and he panicked, you know. It looked like he wanted to go over that wall. But when he finally come back in, Crenshaw got him calmed down, and he started fighting. And then as it went on, the kid's conditioning started telling the tale. Mr. Cooper, his name was Cooper, Vince Cooper, I believe it was. That dog was in no way in the condition to even be able to compete against Crenshaw. And so once that, Jeep kept the dominance all the way through, and, naturally he won. Now, I don't know if it was the last show or the next last show, James and his combine group, we were all down in Georgia somewhere, and he was standing on the back of his pickup truck, and he was hollering out the weight for a Jeep, and he wanted a $10,000 forfeit, and he was hollering out the weight. See, all of us were standing around. Vernon said Vernon at that time had the backing of another fellow. His name was Bass too, but he was not any kin to Randy Bass. He lived in Georgia. He had a big business, sold tires and all kinds. He was a big business, wealthy businessman, and he just liked the dogs. And he backed Vernon. He said, "I got you." He said, "I got your back covered." He said, and so Vernon. He answered that challenge about 3 or 4 times, loud and clear. And James would not acknowledge him.
What?
And finally, Crenshaw came down. Not Crenshaw. Creech. Creech was his name. He came down there and told Vernon that James did not want to match into that Hank dog. And Vernon said, "It's not going to be the Hank dog. It's going to be another dog I got called Sundown." Because the Hank dog's 38 pounds, and I think the Jeep dog was 42 pounds or something. He says, "I got another dog. That's the dog I'm going to use." But they would not make the match. He made the challenge. The challenge was answered. He would not make the match. And so there's a lot goes on that people don't know about back in them 70s and all that. A lot of what's told today, unless you actually there and see it.
You're right about that.
As tales get told, that Miss Poohall Red dog, she was a very good dog. I was series of Poohall Red. In fact, I got the pleasure of whipping Jerry twice. We got him with the Hank dog. Then later on, years later, he came down this part of the country with a little dog, and I had a little dog called Hot Boy. He was a little Maloney Tooth dog. Bred over some over that Grand Spruce Red Champion Jack dog, and I had a little young man, a friend of mine. He worked him, and they was like 32 pounds or something. They were little dogs, we beat him that day, and I sat down and talked with him before he went and left, and I never talked to him again after that. Like I said, I didn't totally dislike Jerry. I just knew just to keep 2 eyes on him. That's all I knew about him.
Yeah.
But with Poohall, Robert Sweatman had a female called Gold Pudding, and she was a brindle dog. And I think she might have been bred off of that Thor dog. I'm not sure how she was bred, but she was a really hard-biting nose dog. And he matched into Poohall Red. And Vernon, my dog partner Jackson, he did the conditioning, and he was. And I want to say about Jack, he was an excellent conditioner. Him and Crenshaw were on par, on the same level, and they fed basically the same way, except where Crenshaw would use kibble to keep more kibble to keep the dog on weight. Jackson would pre-keep a dog on X amount of kibble, and get him on weight with X amount of kibble. He gave him more kibble. he used chicken eggs and chicken backs. He had more of a meat diet with less kibble. And but regardless, they the way he worked the dogs were very similar. And but this dog was in tip-top shape. Jerry had Pooh already. She was in really good shape. But that was actually the beginning of the end for her. For what she took in that particular show. They really devastated each other, and it come up time was one scratch before Pooh Hall come out. She didn't come out fast and strong. She come out slow, and so it come out. And then when it come up for the next time, when it come up for the other dog, with the pudding dog, she was hurt too. Now she was hurt. And probably keep her legs under. And when they were getting ready to scratch her, Atlas Brewer and all that bunch come around there, and they brought anything that was metallic or whatever, and they went to screaming and hollering and just beating, making all the noise when they released her. When they released Gold Pudding, they made all the noise that they could possibly make. I mean, screaming and hollering. That ref should have called it on them. And she hesitated for about 3 or so seconds, looking. She turned her head, and it startled her. And she stood there about 3 or so seconds, staring at whatever that was, and then she got refocused on Pudding, and she went. I mean, not Pudding, but Pooh. She started her scratch. She was stumbling and started, but she got counted out. So after it was over, and so then Jerry wanted to do a courtesy scratch. When he released Pooh Hall, she ran back behind his legs. She did not come out. And later he matched her again into Mayfield, and Mayfield beat him real easily, beat him with that easy bitch. And even in that show, I was there at that show. Jerry kept pulling on his dog. She was on the bottom. She couldn't get up. She was pulling on her. He kept pulling on her. And I'm looking at him. I said, "Man, Jerry, you doing something like that in front of a seasoned dog man like that?" And I was thinking that, and he kept pulling on her. I don't know what he was trying to do. Maybe he was trying to get her to get back up on her feet or something. And finally Mayfield reached down and said, "Well, Jerry, how far you want to snatch him?" And he picked both dogs up over his head. And he was about close to 6'8" or something. He was high, tall. And Jerry was a little short fella. And he was jumping up now. No, I won't do that. I'm going to put him back down. And he put him back down. And, of course, she lost. That was the end of her.
Dang.
Of course, later on down the road, Stinson and Glover, they wiped out easy with that Zebo bitch that they had. And that's an interesting story in itself. But anyhow, I'm not trying to talk bad about. I'm not really not trying to talk bad about dogs. I'm just telling you things I've seen. But listen, we had quitting dogs too. We had dogs quit. All our dogs did not win.
Oh yeah,
they got beat. And but there's a lot of them. They were trying to make reputations for themselves, and they want to hide that stuff. And I was thinking, well, I mean, maybe you won't bring. Maybe that particular incident you might not bring that up, but anyhow, you really had to be there to really see some of that stuff and what goes on. And listen, I believe, to me personally, and I have nothing against Katie Marlowe. I know her real well. I knew her well. Now she told me, of all this was back in the 70s. She had started her own registry. I don't know if Carl Mims took it up or not, but she started her own registry, dog registry. She run a business, rented out, trailers and things. She had a trailer park, and she rented out trailers and whatnot. And I was in her trailer. I'd visit her, and I was in her trailer. She was in a real good mood, and we were talking and all. She said, "I know how to." She said, "Our family run down the breeding on that Redboy dog." I said, "You did?" I said, "That's interesting." And she looked like she was getting ready to tell me, and then some people drove up to look at the trailers, and she had to stop and go do that. And then when we found out we were out there on the dog yard, she didn't ever bring it back up. So that was the closest I come to hearing her version of it. And but let me tell you about Redboy. They got him coming from the Adams Man and the Iron Lion Kennels. He's got his own story. But Redboy was bred out of a litter of puppies by Mr. McLeod. He lived in Florence, South Carolina. And he advertised in the Florence Morning News newspaper or whatever.
Yeah.
And he would advertise pit bull pups for sale. You could buy them for about $85 a pup. That's about what they were going for back in the days, $85, $100, whatever. And so he that bitch he had, that Susie Q, I think her name was Susie Q. I never saw her. Katie saw her, but I never saw her. He bred her. He was breeding. When he wanted to breed her, he'd take her to Mr. Teal's.
Yeah.
And he used one of his stud dogs. And so Redboy was one or two things. He was either Redboy had the Big Mac dog, which was a full brother to Redboy. He was bigger than Redboy. He was a big buckskin black muzzle dog, rough dog. A lot of times Howard using the school dogs. He was wanting to take a look at. And he was a bruiser. I saw him roll him, roll him on some dogs a few times. Well, then there was Redboy, and so Wilbur Martin. This is his name. That's the actual original owner. I would say the one other than Mr. Till, if he had him, he was the original owner of the Redboy dog. And so it was one or two things. He either went down there and bought Redboy as a puppy from Mr. McLeod, or maybe Big Mac and Redboy were stud feet the pups, given back to Howard.
Yeah.
And Howard might have given Redboy, because he gave, Redboy, Mr. Till gave me a pit bull. I wanted a pit bull, a young man. He gave me a beautiful buckskin pup. He didn't give me no papers. He just gave me the dog.
Yeah.
And then the Redboy dog, that might be how Wilbur got Redboy, one way or the other. But Wilbur had the papers on the dog. And I'm sure he never would give the Bass out the way Bass finagled him. Because he did not, I didn't know all that till me and Andy, I went there and visited him some. We visited him several times. And I think Andy bought a couple of dogs from him. And what he had on his yard was some Lapassi Kobe dogs. He had some of that Lapassi Tiger Jack, or I always want to call him Carver's Tiger Jack, but Lapassi owned him, that Tiger Jack stuff. And he had some bullet dogs, some of them too. And then he had Redboy. He had Redboy, maybe he could have been anywhere from 14 months to, I don't know how many months old he had him, maybe 18 months. But he bred him. And I own one of those bitches. He bred Redboy for Bass got him. And he bred him, and in fact, one of the dogs that we lost a hard match to, me and Andy Al, when first dog we tried to do, it was really an outstanding dog show. Was the dog I had was called Young's Liz. She was off of Redboy and a bullet bred dog, and the one that Rowell had was a male to that breed. They were black dogs, black and white dogs. I forgot. I don't remember what he called that dog, but that's the one he used. And then later, let's see, they were trying to. When you get my age, you start wondering. They were. If you go to the Pit Bull Bible database, actually sometimes you can enter the name and put APBT. And sometimes it'll pull up those pedigrees online, and also on the I used to call it California Jack site, off of his site. It'll come up. But I listed all the siblings of the Redboy dog, all of his siblings. I had one of them, a full brother to Redboy. Some of them came red nosed like him. Miles on that dog originally. Miles Bouncer, he was a Tiger rental, and then there was Mr. McDougal had one called Happy. There was a crippled man named Theo Hendricks. He had one called Sandy. He was a red-nosed dog too, with a real light red.